Hello, welcome to the really close to the basket Pacers podcast from IndyStar. My name's Nat Newell, I'm the Pacers editor. I'm here with Dustin Dopirak. All right, wait a minute. My producer is telling me that is not the name of the podcast. The name of the podcast is the From Way Downtown
Where they
Pacers
don't hit any
podcast.
shots.
I mean, who? That's really the name of the podcast? All righty, we'll do it again. Hello, welcome to the From Way Downtown Pacers podcast. I am IndyStar's Pacers editor, Nat Newell. I'm here with our beat writer, Dustin Dopirak. Dustin, obviously, it's been a brutal season. Making it even worse from our standpoint is there's no one to blame and get people to hate read.
True.
And so rather than going through all the injuries and everything else, let's try to, I say this is positive. It's not really positive, but it's as positive I can come up with. What's the best possible outcome from this season for this team?
They got to win some games. I mean, I think, obviously, I think everybody looks at this well, it's tank mode time. And they don't, the fact of the matter is, they don't have to, make a decision to tank. They're 1-13. The
world is making the decision for them, as you've already written.
It is. Tanking is happening to them. There doesn't. I mean, I feel like it's almost would be satisfying, for them to kind of make a decision and it to be made clear that they're not trying anymore. Because if they're trying and this is still what happens, then oh my God, what do you do here? But they don't have to come to the conclusion that it's time to fold up the tent, because they're the same things happening, that would be happening if they were making that decision.
If they weren't trying.
So if they weren't trying, they'd be, they maybe would have 0 wins. So I would just, I would say first off, they need to win some games to not disintegrate. And that is important. And I said this before the season when I thought, they could go win 40 something games and get in the playoffs, when they were still close to whole. These guys have won too much to lose like this and it not have a negative impact. Because I think you have to look at it and say, this is still the core of the team. You still have the core of the team that you want to go try to win a championship. This stuff doesn't help you. You need to keep these guys positive. You need to keep these guys liking playing together. You want these guys liking each other. That is their superpower. And the losing that goes on right now is the type of stuff that wears on that a lot. Because you see guys do stuff you don't like, you have that experience of losing a lot, and you're looking around and saying, well, this guy can't do this and this guy can't do that. The last couple of years, even when they were when they were 35-47, that's the happiest, 12 games under 500 team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Just by virtue of they could see a plan was coming together, and they were like, okay, that guy's going to be good. That guy's going to be good. That guy's going to be good. We're rolling. We're not there yet, but we're going to be okay. And it's totally fine that they, kind of maybe checked out for the last 5-6 games of the year, because they were like, hey man, one more piece is great. We're in good shape. We don't need to be in the playoffs this year. In every way they were in the right place, and they didn't really call it until the last week of the season. They were sort of allowed to play and go win games until the final maybe 6-7 games, when it was all right, Halliburton's out of the lineup, Turner's out of the lineup, TJ McConnell had a great game, and then the next day he was out of the lineup, and it was me and Tony East joked, Rick said something about him having competitive fire. He was it was really
too hard.
Term of that. I'm like, okay, what is TJ McConnell out with competitive fire? Is that what is that his reason why he's not why he's not available today? And it probably was. TJ played too well for them to lose enough games for them to feel safe that they were going to be in the lottery, as opposed to making a push for the play-in. But this is different, and you can't go 5 and what would be 77 and maintain that. So they have to win some basketball games. They have to do whatever it takes to get some on the board. Right now, this pace is enough to kill you. This is the sort of pace that makes you, makes you miserable. And, when you get back next year and you get one additional player, even if it's Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa, you look around and you've created enough wear and tear on the guys that got you to your last Eastern Conference championship. And they're not the same. They don't have the same superpowers as they had a year ago. That's going to be tough to wash off if it's that bad. So they need to win some games. I mean, I don't know what the number is that makes sense. And, like you're not at the point yet where you even know, well, this is the guy they need to get. Like this is the additional piece that you need to have. It's like, because on one hand, there's a bunch of options, and like you're still getting a sense of, okay, who, and you look at, it's not like Wembanyama that year when you were like, okay, well, you get Wemby and no matter who you are, all your problems are changed. I mean, the Pacers had a center at that point in Miles Turner. But you knew that, okay, wherever you get Wemby is where you play Wemby. If Wemby's your point guard, then Wemby's your point guard. That's fine. And
as the great Bob Knight quote when the Stu Inman from Portland drafted Sam Bowie instead of Michael Jordan, and Knight said, "You're crazy," and Inman said, "I need a center." And Knight said, "Draft Jordan and play him at center."
Right. And Wemby could be your anything. So at that point, they needed a power forward. Wemby could have certainly been a power forward. But, end up with Jarris Walker out of that. And at the time didn't seem like a bad deal. So I don't know who your target is that says, okay, get this guy. Like if it's if you think Darren Peterson and AJ DeBonsa are the best guys in the draft and you have the number one pick, well, you take one of them. You just take the best guy and you add that to your depth and you let that, that person will figure out where he fits and he'll play, and you build around that. But, I mean, maybe Chris Sinak out of Houston. I mean, he's a center with some, shooting range, big guy. Maybe that's the guy you need. And maybe you can get him at 5 or 6 and that's fine. Maybe that's what is ultimately the best case scenario is you get, you win enough games to get the 5th or 6th pick and you get maybe 25, 30 out of that. And then you have a center. And, that's probably what they desperately need right now because you're not getting nearly enough production out of that group. And it's going to be hard to pick one up otherwise. And maybe if that guy's ready, and he's, he looks pretty good from what you've seen so far, but I mean, he's only 3 or 4, 5 games into the season. You'll see if that's a guy who fits you and maybe that's the best case scenario. But I mean, like the best case scenario is they win enough games to not fall apart and they get a guy who fits who they need, who's going to be able to play right away. And, I think Sinak is the best center option that they have where they already have enough, theoretically they already have enough wings and they already have enough point guards. If everybody comes back healthy and hasn't fallen off next year and hasn't come to hate the process of whatever this turns out to be, then, a big guy is what you need. So that's your best case scenario in theory at this point.
Yeah, so that worries the whole poisoning the atmosphere thing worries me a little less than probably it worries you. I know you're there, so
sure.
People should probably listen to you and not me. Just from the standpoint of Halliburton's going to come. You already had that hanging over you, and
sure.
And I mean when we've talked about this, this is no one's fault. This is
right.
This is just bad, really, really bad injury luck. And I thought they could win. You said they could win 40 games. I was in agreement with you there. Maybe they weren't ever that good. That's a whole other conversation about what Halliburton does and things like that. But to me, the big thing is they don't, as you said, they don't need to tank. I mean, I ran the numbers for 1-12 teams. I have not run the 1-13 team numbers yet because although fewer teams every time gets easier. The team that started 1-12 that had the best record was the 74-75 Milwaukee Bucks. I believe that was the year that Kent Benson rammed his face into Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's fist to break Kareem's hand early in the season. They started off horrible, and then they came back and they ended up winning 38 games. So let's put some perspective on this.
Sure. In 1974-75, if you take Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on a team and then you put him back on a team,
in his prime, we're talking about one of the 10 best and perhaps most underrated player in NBA history on the team. They won 38 games. So to me, that says, 22, 25 games is kind of the maximum, at which point you're still going to probably be in the lot. You could easily be in one of those 4, the worst 4 teams get the same odds. I think you could easily get to the point. I mean, you can tell Siakam take the last couple of weeks of the season off. I don't really think it's a problem to get to those 22 wins, no matter what Benedict Mathurin said last night. Although I love Benedict Mathurin coming in, taking off his coat, and saying, "Fellas, I'm here. Now we're going to win." But I love that. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But
it was so great. It was so great. I mean, I need to couch this because like I mean I am fully like Ben can rub people the wrong way because his confidence is just limitless. I find him entertaining. I think he's a more likable guy than people realize. You know, the more I'm around him, because he has such this like hard shell to him, but like he is just like confidence is overflowing. Like you can't tell Ben that he's not good enough. Like he wouldn't hear it if you tried, and like. It is right now exactly what they need. And it's funny, like everything that's ever been wrong with Ben Mathurin is what's right now. Like is what's necessary right now, because he is not daunted. He like, and you're not going to, like, it's not like if they lose 50 games in a row, he's going to be like, oh my God, I can't do this. Ben Mathurin is going to wake up every day believing he can get 40. Every single
believing
day.
the 10 game winning streak starts today because he is on the court. And again, I think you're right. Like if the guy, if he's not a jerk, which I don't think he is, like if the people, like you say, he gives off like outside the team, perhaps he can. I get where people
and I think
within the team, if they know who he is, then I mean, why can't? How can you not like that attitude?
I know. The funny part is, I think it took them a while, some in particular,
to figure it out.
To be like, what's this guy? Like this guy, and it's funny. Like you watch like Halliburton's quotes with him. I think Halliburton in particular has been a funny guy to watch with him. And like I don't know if Halliburton would ever like fully express this. But like, you know, I mean, like you go back to the Futures game when Halliburton was on the broadcast and he's like, he passed.
Yeah.
And then after the game, after they won on Saturday night, after Halliburton and Turner and Mathurin won the skills challenge, Mathurin said something like, man, this is better than winning MVP for the Futures game. And Turner goes like cap, which is like, you know, this generation slang for you're lying. And like Halliburton and Turner just died because they were like, no, you don't. There's no way you think this is cooler than winning MVP. We know you, Ben. Come on, let's be serious. But like I think they've come to realize, you know, and there have been little like kind of signs of this. And I think you know, I asked them about the chemistry that seemed like they really had between like Mathurin, Nesmith, Nembhard, and Siakam in preseason. And he said something like, you know, we come to really understand each other. Like guys know if like you take a bad shot, it's not on purpose. And it's almost like everybody had to be like, you know, like they do see some of that like overconfidence and like blowing up the system in him. And he's like, man, I'm just confident. I just believe I can make that shot because I've always made that shot. And like, there's some value to that. And like, you know, Carlisle had a conversation with him last year, like after Halliburton missed a couple games, he averaged like 25 in that stretch and he came back and he had like barely scored at halftime in the next game. You know, like Rick was like, yeah, I know what I'm asking you to do. I know I'm asking you to be two different guys. And they've kind of come across like it's sincere, it's genuine, and it's not meant to belittle anybody else. I mean, like little things like him bringing baked goods onto the plane during the playoff run when he was out, like have endeared him to these guys, and they get him now. I think like, and if he gets let go, it's going to take him a minute to warm to everybody he goes to next because they're going to take the same thing. But like even my personal interactions with him, like I've seen, like he kind of goes out of his way lately to be a nice guy to me, and like I think he is a nice guy. And like even I go back to something his sister said to me when I wrote a big feature on him. He's like, you know, like. He's not, she says, I think a lot of people misread him and they think he's like borderline disrespectful, and he's really not. He's just confident in himself and he works really hard and he kind of thinks he's earned it. And like what, like this group needs exactly that, you know, like it needs somebody to come in with a sense of belief that this isn't going to just go haywire and that there's nothing that you can do. And, you know, if Pascal Siakam ever thought that Ben Mathurin was too much, he's not going to feel that way right now. Like Nembhard in particular, like you basically like, you know, you look back at Siakam and Nembhard's comments from the other night, and it's almost like, man, we need Ben Mathurin. Like that, it's almost like the subtext to it. Like, you know, Nembhard said something about these guys are like kind of just floating around and they're not hooping. And like, you know who hoops? Ben Mathurin hoops. You know, like, you know who plays fearless and doesn't care about mistakes? Ben Mathurin plays fearless and does not care about mistakes. Like, you want Ben Mathurin to go create some stuff, you want to make somebody to make something happen, Ben Mathurin will sign up for that job. He'll put, he'll be the first person on the list. He'll sign John Hancock real big. I'm Ben Mathurin. I'm going to come do this. You know, like, it is, there is, you know, like they need more than just that. But like, if you were asking for one guy to try to come in and be what those two guys were asking for right now, well, Benedict Mathurin is that guy.
I want to get back to the lottery, or the top of the lottery. I've done the number, ran the numbers, and like and my point before was that this Pacers team is not winning more than 20 something games this year, so they're going to be there at the end. You run the numbers and it tells you, unless there is a generational player, tanking is probably not what you need to do. But as you said, the Pacers are not tanking. The tanking is pacering, or however you want to put it.
They're being tanked.
They are being tanked. Yes.
State is tanking the Pacers. They are not taking a gap year. A gap year is taking them.
Yes. So if that's the case, this is a good year to have that happen. In that there are, like, right now there are three. Again, we're not scouts. I have not watched a single one of these guys play. You might be a little bit more in tune with the college world than I am. But Darren Patterson, who's can play either backcourt position for Kansas. AJ, I'm going to mispronounce his name.
Let's say Devonsa.
Can play either forward spot. And then you got Cameron Boozer, who can play power forward or center, kind of undersized for a center. And you mentioned the guy from Houston, and I will get to him in a second. But my point is, I think the Pacers have enough. We don't know what's going to happen with Mathurin, which we're going to get into in a second. We don't know what's going to happen. You got Siakam, so like taking Devonsa, who's a power forward, or maybe is more. Yeah. I mean, does that bother you? Because I think you got enough move. I mean, Walker is another guy that we're going to talk about. You don't need to have him back on the roster next year. Boozer gives you someone who maybe can play center, and then all of a sudden you don't need a full-time center. You need someone else who can bring the size and that aspect of it. Right. I mean, to me, I'm not overly concerned about, because I also think Nembhard could play. I mean, who knows what happens? But can you play Halliburton, Nembhard, and Peterson together? Maybe you can, because Nembhard can play big.
Right.
So I'm not too. I mean, to me, you go into the draft. You're going to get a high pick. Maybe it's one of these three guys. There's other choices out there at the top of the draft. People say it's top three. There's another guy who the people are talking about going in at being part of that group. I can't remember.
Nate Ament from Tennessee, probably.
He's one I've heard. Yeah, but anyway, you probably got six guys who are legit potential impact players. I really think in the long term, this isn't what you wanted. But now that you're here, this isn't the worst thing in the world. The Golden State went through this. They got the second pick in the draft. It was James Wiseman. He didn't even make an impact, and they didn't miss a beat. And now, as we're doing this podcast, I'm really wishing that they were playing Golden State next week, so you could ask those guys what it was like to go through that.
Yeah.
But I just think, again, this is not a good thing. But if this is where you're at, I don't think this is the worst thing in the world for the long-time future of the team. And I would think that you could convince some of these guys, not now, but at midseason, hey, guys, it just didn't work out. It's no one's fault. Let's go get another pick, and let's increase our number of options that we have going into the offseason.
Yeah.
And let's put the best possible team. I mean, we're going to be better next year than we were supposed to be this year. Or I don't know if you want to say that, because maybe you lose Mathurin and that's a bigger loss. But I think there's potential to be better in 26, 27 than there was coming a fully healthy 25, 26 team. Tell me I'm crazy.
Yeah, I think it's just a question of and maybe I'm just too deep into it right now in terms of like looking at this and like what, like my view was, it is always like, all right, like yes, there is the like logical step outside 10,000 feet view of it, that okay, like ultimately what's better, to make the play in or to like get a better player, like in theory, a great player, changes the trajectory a whole lot more than getting in the play-in round. Like if you go in the play-in round, you play one game, you lose. Like what's the point of the comparative value of doing that versus getting a player that can make you dramatically better? Like that decision seems obvious, that is that you take the player. And so like from 10,000 feet, that looks fine. And I don't think this isn't the worst case scenario for the franchise. I mean, you still have all these guys together, but it's just, I think the sense that obviously this is my team, I don't root for them, whatever. But if I'm a Pacers fan, if it's if a Pacers fan knew what I knew in terms of, and that's what I certainly try to convey. And that's supposed to be, I guess, the point of me, if you will. I would think it would be not terrified. It's not toxic in there. It's not like guys are throwing stuff at each other in the locker room or whatever. But, it just feels like it's wearing.
And it's as you know better than me. I mean, you've watched every minute of every game. I've watched a lot of it. It's just awful. I mean, I think it's worse than the two. They had the 2 lottery years where they got Mathurin and Walker. It's worse. It feels worse than that. I mean, it feels a lot worse than that. And, and again, like I said, I don't think it's necessary. I get the expectations coming into the year, but it's not like I'm saying, oh God, how can they're really blowing this? It's just there's no hope. There's nothing. I mean, again, I shouldn't be saying this because our jobs depend on people wanting to read about this team, but there's just nothing to talk about with this team right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I do think, but I do think good or bad, Mathurin coming back is an inflection point.
Yes.
And a couple games ago, the Golden State game when Siakam and Nesmith were both out, on top of Mathurin, and it's basically I think they just got Nembhard back. They didn't have McConnell back, and it was basically Nembhard and and they score 83 points. So you're looking at the roster and you're thinking, okay, well, where do you find 100 points? And the answer was you don't.
Not even close.
There's you don't get there. And they managed to make it 65 with 2 minutes to go in the third, and then they kind of just let go of the rope defensively. They were trying to play that one under 100 and not quite. But you look at that team and okay, well if that's who you're running out, you're not winning an NBA game. And that's just how it is. But it's when you have guys around, then it's all right, you at least have a couple pieces out there that you look at and say, well, you should be better, man. And so if Mathurin comes out there and he's totally off the page, and he's just doing whatever, and it's making it worse, then if you end up with kind of a rift among Nembhard and Siakam and Mathurin, then that's a problem, and then you have to make a decision as far as that's concerned, and that changes things, and that leaves some sour taste in people's mouths. That's an issue. You certainly Jarris Walker has to do something to endear himself to this team. Jarris Walker needs to do something. And, I'm not saying everybody's mad at him. They're not. I saw TJ McConnell kind of brush him aside and say, hey man, and I asked about this later. So I don't have, I'm not quoting what I heard, in the distance. I asked TJ, I know you talked to him, well, what are you just trying to get across? And he's just you're going to have days when you don't make shots. You have to bring something else, you have to make an impact with defense. You need to do this. You need to just stay positive. You just have to, it's how you respond to those moments that decide what kind of player you are. So they're going to need to see something from him, that he is the guy that, most of these other guys have given you what you could ask, because they're two-way contract guys, or they're here on a 10-day, as a hardship, or they're, Tony Bradley's given you everything Tony Bradley can give you, in terms of guys who've played above their station. Tony Bradley's played above his station. So it's at the end of the day, it's just, that's been your best center option. Isaiah Jackson's had good and bad days, but ultimately he's been Isaiah Jackson,
Right.
Jarris Walker's a guy that there's more potential to, and you need more of that. But it's just if you're Nembhard and Siakam and you have days where you're scoring half the points between the two of you, and you're looking around and saying, is anybody going to do anything? That creates a feeling of just not distrust, but it's just like it doesn't feel like the all for one for all thing that's been driving this team for the last couple of years. I mean, like go back, like they had that when they were 35 and 47. Like I was still covering IU for the 21-22 year when they won 25 games. But I mean, just the Halliburton trade gave them so much juice that like even they didn't win a whole bunch of games after that, they had a sense of, okay, this is what our answer is. This is who we're going to be. And throughout that 35 and 47 team, they were actually like, oh, yep, this is us. This is who we need to be. We need more pieces. Let's not get ahead of ourselves and go mess up a draft pick. But these are, this is the type of style we have to play. For the most part, these are our guys. We need a handful more pieces. We need a power forward, at least one, and end up being two. Obviously end up getting Obi Toppin and Siakam over the course of that year, and that changes who they become. This year's group doesn't, there is a light at the end of the tunnel of, okay, everybody's coming back, but it's still like you would want to see more from what's there, and I think that can be something that bothers them, and like it's wearing on Pascal, you can tell, and it's wearing on them hard. And, and maybe, after a while, right now, it's not, Ben Mathurin hasn't played, so it hasn't worn on Ben Mathurin yet, but maybe it will. And so those are kind of the interesting questions of, and like, so what does that become when Halliburton comes back? And then it's also like, okay, like what if when next season starts, they're not magically immediately better, like what if that can carry over? Like there is just a sour taste that can come from this that I just, and again, maybe it fades out. Maybe they start next year like 7-0 and they forgot the season ever happened. But like there's going to be like 82 games is a long time to suffer, and when it's every other night, like that's a lot of suffering to do. And so you just, you need to get at least some wins that like elevate this. Like it's important that they're just not the worst team ever. You don't want to be 8 and, like 10 and 72, like or 9 and 73 or 8 and 74 or whatever it is now. Like you don't want that.
There have been 4 teams that have made the NBA finals and then won less than 30% of their games there next year. I don't remember the years now. One was Wilt Chamberlain got traded. One was Michael Jordan retired. One was Steph Curry got hurt. One was LeBron James leaves in free agency. The 5th team, where obviously right now, is the Pacers. The the obvious thing is Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt. Chamberlain and Curry are 2 of the most transformative players in NBA history.
Right.
James and Jordan are perhaps the 2 best players in NBA history. As good as Halliburton is, he is not in their class. But is there something to that? I mean, do you think he is that important to making this team go to what last year's team was? Is he that? Does he have that kind of ability, even if the actual, I don't know what you want to say, talent or whatever, isn't the same as those 4 guys?
You do have to mention the other pieces. You do have to mention that Miles Turner left, and they did not replace him. You do have to mention Nembhard and McConnell missing all the time they've missed, Mathurin missing the time he's missed, and now Aaron Nesmith missing the time he's missed, and Obi Toppin missing the time he's going to miss. So like there are obviously additive factors, but it while that kind of diminishes the argument a little for how important he is, he's really, really, really important, and he creates a style of play. He creates a connectivity, with both the way he plays basketball and his personality, that's missing. And I mean, I think he's trying to do everything he can from where he sits, like he is showing up darn near every night. I mean, I don't know if he's missed. He may have missed a game. Maybe he's missed 2. I'm not even sure that he has. I think he's been on the bench every night, and he's trying to do something. I think they let him call a play the other night in garbage time. I'm pretty sure he did, because I think Caitlin Cooper was all over it. Just like it was like Taylor Peter out on the floor and whatever. But I think Rick let him call a play. I mean, Rick's calling timeouts he doesn't even have at this point. So like the last 5 minutes of games, Rick's checked out. So he's just, go ahead. Like I asked him about calling timeouts. It's like, it's 1 point. Like this
We're
facial
losing by 20 and you're worried about 1 point.
Yeah, his facial expression when he says 1 point is just disgusted because it's just like, I can't believe I'm saying I don't care at all about 1 point, but I can't. I'm down 20, like with 3 minutes to go. I'm not getting those back. Like it just hurt him to even say it's 1 point. It's like, usually it's like every point matters. This one's like, these points don't matter. But like he, it's a totally different vibe in the whole place, when he's around, but like, even, he's not rarely coming in pregame locker room, but like he's on the bench. He's trying to do as much as he can. He's out there doing rehab and he's doing everything he can to get back healthy for next year. But it's just, he is what made that offense work. It isn't coincidental that they go from 2 years ago, the highest scoring offense in 40 years of the NBA, to they're 29th in scoring, they're 30th in offensive efficiency, they're 30th in field goal percentage, they're 30th in 3-point field goal percentage, they're 30th in effective field goal percentage. They're still like at or near the top of passes thrown, and they're somewhere like 25th or probably lower than that in assists, like, which tells you everything you need to know. Like they're like it's not working. Nothing is working. What they usually do, like that just sort of ball movement, this ball is going to pop everywhere and it's going to find somebody offense, is not. Like they are like so often having to be like, shoot, Pascal, just go make a play. Like nothing's happening, nothing's opening up, nothing's easy. Pascal, go ISO somebody and just trust that you're going to make a shot. And, you might do it more often than not, but apparently not. So, it's just everything that this team was built on feels like it can't do.
Let's hit on the 3 things, 2 of which we've already touched on, so we'll go quick. But are the Pacers going to know what Mathurin, whether he fits this team at the end of the season? Because they got to make a decision on him with the contract coming up. They can obviously bring him back as a restricted free agent, which, so there's options there. But are we going to have, because of what's happened this year, are they going to know whether he belongs on this team or if he should be used as a trade asset?
Not really. No, I mean, like it's going to be a long time. If they ever get to the point that they can be a ball pop, the ball's popping, moving offense, like, it's a long way to that. They're a long way from being able to do that. Like they're going to have to get Neesmith back. They're going to have to get Obi back. Everybody else has got to be healthy. They need to have McConnell operating on all cylinders. Like I don't see a world right now where you look at Mathurin and you say, all right, go back to just taking open shots and making quick decisions and stuff like that. Like I think you want to see that. You want to see some of that from him, like just some signs of it, but like, like I think you're at the point, things being where they are. Like I think maybe Carlisle would have wanted that. Like I think the first couple games, and I think he actually did some of that stuff where it was like he's making the smart shots you want him to take. Like now he has to force action because somebody has to force action. Like I don't think that they can, like even if Rick just sort of said, okay, like I need you to be this guy. I don't care if we win any basketball games. I need you to be this guy. Like, I don't think that's good. I don't think they can do it. Like, I think this team has to let Ben Mathurin go be Ben Mathurin. And therefore I don't think you're going to get a lot out of the evaluation piece to it. Like I get it would be more, on some level be more valuable. Like I was like, who cares if this team wins games? But like, I don't think the offense is ever going to work well enough that it's going to create any opportunities for him to do that. Like, I don't, like there's going to be situations, like in kind of small spurts there is, in the sense of Siakam's going to get a double team. And if he passes to Mathurin out of a double team, Mathurin has to take a quick shot because nobody's on him, like if someone drifts off of him, but they're probably not, like he's probably never going to have that kind of space. Like he's never going to have the opportunities to even be making the same decisions that he would be making in a Halliburton-centric offense. So, like, you almost can't recreate what you need him to do in the first place. So you have to just let him go be him. Like, there's almost no choice in the matter. So, no, you're not going to learn anything. But what you will learn, if he wins him some games, is, that he can be helpful that way, and he's still really good at that. And he might be too good for you to let go.
The other piece is obviously Walker. Is there? I mean, I say this because there's time for him to turn it around. If he continues at the pace he's at right now, I mean, I don't see how he's a piece for a winning NBA team. Just where is he at? What do you think they need to do with Jarris Walker?
They're just, I mean, he's got to develop into something. I mean, and there's too much stuff that he's just not doing right. That, like, I don't know, something has to happen there. I mean, he's at least rebounding the basketball. He's playing some defense, but like shooting 29.8% from the floor, 26.4% from three.
You can't play in the NBA like that. I mean, that period. I don't care what else you do. You can't play like that.
Like, yeah. Yeah, like he's averaging 10 points a game just on the basis of volume. He's shooting almost 80% from the free throw line, so I guess that's nice. But it's just, yeah, he's almost not playable right now. And he's playable because what's your other choice? Like you have to play him. But like in a team that expected to win games, like you couldn't put him on the floor right now. And it's just like everybody's been waiting, like, when's Jarris Walker going to play? When's Jarris Walker going to play? When's Jarris Walker going to play? And like this, you're just like, okay, well, he's getting his chance. He's getting his opportunity. He's getting so much opportunity. Again, like, if this season started and you say, well, Jarris Walker's going to average almost 11 shots a game and play a tick under 30 minutes, like you'd be like, oh, great. Well, that should work out well. Yeah. And it hasn't gone well. And so, I mean, it's just like, it's not just putting the ball in the hoop, and he needs to put the ball in the hoop. Like there are shots available for him to make that he needs to make, but it's just offensive process. You're just like, man, go to the rim sometimes. You just keep driving into a floater that you're missing. Like, no, like you're 6'8", 230 or whatever. Like, go power the ball to the rim, go there, play with some just direction, velocity, force, power, all of those things. That's where he needs to be on offense. I mean, he just seems to be just doing too much floating, and taking floaters and floating offensively, and not shooting with conviction. You need all of that. I mean, and the ball starts to go in. Like it's like the ball finds energy. The ball, helps energy. It's one of those things that they say in the locker room all the time. They need that out of Ben Mathurin. They need that out of Jarris Walker. They need to see that. And again, like Mathurin's going to come in and he's going to play fierce, dogged, everything else. Like they need Jarris Walker to look at Ben Mathurin and say, okay, you know what? Like ordinarily, we might not always tell you that, but play like that. Look at what that guy's bringing, the force that he's going to play with. And, you play with that force and see what happens, because this ain't going anywhere.
And we'll end it with the only positive thing I can think of to say about the season so far, which is they got the 26th pick back. Can you imagine what they're going through if they had not made that trade? Again, it was as much how stupid the Pelicans are, sure, and how lucky the Pacers are. But the Pacers under Kevin Pritchard have been a very, very successful team. And you go back and you look at that trade that they made for Siakam, in which they sent out that 26th pick, but they got it back for the 25 pick last year. Yeah. And you got Siakam and what looks like it's going to be a high lottery pick, and you gave up Collier from the Jazz, who's, looks like a decent player, but you're getting maybe Asa Newell. You had a half season of Bruce Brown, a third of a season of Jordan Nwora. I just think it's easy to lose, like the phrase you've been using. It's easy to let go of the rope on this Pacers front office, whether it's Pritchard or Buchanan or Carlisle. But I don't see how you can, given that as bad. I mean, everything has gone wrong, and yet there is a path next year to this team. Like I said, that again, people don't have to agree with it, but there is a chance that this next year's team will be better than this year's team could have been with Halliburton and all the pieces. Sure. Because of what they have done trade wise and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot. The shrewdness has been exceptional. I mean, like, not every draft pick has gone right. Oddly, I guess on some level they've been better with a hand tied behind their back. On some level, that doesn't go across the board, but like, it's almost like their late picks have been better than their top picks.
Yeah, I mean, Walker hasn't worked out, but Turner and Mathurin, have been good picks.
You mean Shepard? Yeah, Matherin's reasonably worked out. Certainly like Nemhard has played above his station. Obviously, that's pretty clear. There
Isaiah
are.
Jackson was a nice pick until the Achilles, and it looks like he's going to come back, but we'll see. But another nice pick. You mentioned Shepard, who's been terrible this year, but was a rotation player on a NBA
Has
Finals
been a
team.
really useful player the last couple of years. Yeah, you haven't he is being asked to do stuff that's a little bit above his pay grade, and it's not worked out. But when he was asked to do stuff that was exactly at his pay grade, he was very, very good at it. Just making your life miserable defensively, hitting open shots, been very, very good at that stuff. So he has, ultimately, they have made a lot of shrewd moves. Draft wise it's not been perfect, and you certainly can look back at some ugly misses before this. But there's been a lot of sharp stuff. I think the one thing that they've missed on, and I still think this is a miss. I mean, I know nobody's happy with the guy right now and whatever, but would the future look better if you had Miles Turner signed up for a couple of years? Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
And I still think they could have, you could say, well, they didn't get an opportunity to match. They could have made the offer that Milwaukee made. They could have made the offer that Milwaukee made and cleared the table so that, and got that thing done before the, negotiating even opened, rather than try to see how little they could pay him, and I think,
fair.
Yeah, I mean, just even no matter how much, even if you give them all the benefit of the doubt, even if you give all deference to sort of Indiana's, track on this and how they've explained how this went down, they still could have, instead of, what they clearly didn't do, and they, they essentially admitted this, is they didn't make the clear the board offer that says, we want you, we want this over with, here's 4 years, $100 million, let's go. No matter what even if you put the best version of what they did on the table, they didn't do that, the best version of their explanation. They didn't do that. They could have done that. And then you're not in a position where you have a spot that you don't know what you're going to do with it yet. And you have at least at every position, you're like, okay, we have our guy. It's just a question of getting that guy back healthy and whatnot. And so now you have one position where you're a little lost. And so that he still has to own that. And there are draft picks in the past he still has to own. But for the most part, a lot of really smart, shrewd decisions, getting Neesmith, as part of that Boston deal it sends Malcolm Brogdon over there. Again, Siakam was really well put together. Over, paying Bruce Brown way too much money,
was a smart decision.
Was a genius decision, because you end up being able to move him, and because you get Toronto to the point that they were really desperate to break the thing up. And at that point, you don't need players, you need money, that will, make the trade work. And that's ended up what happening. They didn't have to give up anybody they didn't want to trade, in that case. And that ends up being a super smart decision to go 2 years, $45 million on Bruce Brown with an opt out, with the team option in year 2. And Bruce Brown gets his money and he goes back to Denver after 2 years. And I don't think he enjoyed himself at all, but put that, that bank account got big. And
I'm willing to not enjoy myself a significant amount for
$45 million. Yes, I will also gladly.
Someone wants to have that conversation with me, I'm here.
Yes, exactly. Just sign me up for that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think, there have been a lot of smart decisions made by this front office, and you have to believe that they will continue to make smart decisions. And Rick Carlisle's done a great job of coaching. I mean, I don't think you can look at this and say, well, this season is proof that none of this stuff works, and that guys don't know what they're doing. And
the two NBA Finals appearances or the Eastern Conference Finals appearances. Carlisle's a bum.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't get me wrong. There's not zero blame for them for this. They don't get nothing out of this. But in terms of if you would have done this, you wouldn't have been in this position. They've got a little bit of that. There's not zero. Blood on their hands, if you will. But there's certainly not enough to say, well, you'd be better off with somebody else in that position long term, in terms of what comes next. They've absolutely made enough. And again, it is little decisions like, like going and even before Halliburton got hurt, they certainly didn't know it was going to be that good of a choice, but it certainly worked out. I mean, I think they just realized like, okay, we're not getting anything out of this first round pick for 2025. We'll get a 29th pick. We'll get buried on our, bench. And, right now, like would that person technically help them right now? Yeah, it would help a little, but for what? Where next year, whoever they get, the way things are tracking, could be a franchise changing player. So,
I don't think Cousin Asa is turning this around for the Pacers.
No. Yeah, I don't think so.
All righty, that is it for the Pacers podcast. I won't say the name. We'll have to see if we have to change it or not. But thank you very much for watching. Go to IndyStar.com for all of Dustin's work. Thank you very much.